In this next week 14 video, we're going to talk about HTML basics and the various sections of an HTML page. Okay, so the history of HTML. It was originally created as a means for displaying content on the World Wide Web. It's actually a subset of SGML from 1986, which is the Standardized General Markup Language. And the addition of hypertext enabled pages to be linked together. In our first video, we talked about the importance of the hyperlink. It gives life to web pages. And so when they moved from SGML to HTML, users were able to navigate between pages using hyperlinks. And the universally accepted version is HTML 4.01. It was released in 1997, and you'll say, that's really old. And as you read through the Web Standards Project and looked at W3C, you begin to realize that it takes quite a process to get something from early development into the accepted version. HTML5 is being used across certain browsers, but it's not as widely accepted as HTML 4.01. Okay, this is kind of a really neat concept. If you haven't heard of this already, it's called the Wayback Machine, and it's available at archive.org. And what it is they use web crawlers to catalog websites. Even if the websites are no longer hosted, they've actually crawled the web over a series of years, and it actually allows you to see a website's evolution. So it'll take snapshots of a domain for a series of years, and then you can actually click on those years, even though it's not an active website anymore, and see how the website has evolved. So this is a really kind of fun thing to look at, and you can think of eBay. You can look at the original homepage for eBay and how it's evolved. You can look at FGCU's website and how it has evolved. So I recommend that you take a look at the Wayback Machine and view some of your favorite sites, the history of those sites. So why do we need HTML? HTML is considered the working language of the web. It's not necessarily considered code, it's considered a language, but it really is the backbone from which all other languages that we use for the web kind of interacts with and begins from. It can be universally used and learned, and because it is a language, it allows it to work with the standards of the World Wide Web Consortium. It's designed to promote consistency in format, and even when the display mechanism is not universal. What does that mean? It means when the web browsers differ, when the platform differs, whether you're staring at your laptop right now or you're looking at this via an iPad or you're on your smartphone, HTML is designed to be consistent with some limitations, but be consistent across several platforms. And HTML is the core code of these pages, as we mentioned earlier. So it's a really neat thing to look at the source of a web page to kind of see how folks created it. By viewing the source of a web page, you simply right-click on it and choose View Source. And the source of the page will open in Notepad. And this is just another, it's kind of like using the Wayback Machine. It's just another interesting way to look at how a web page is structured. And you can review the code to see if it would pass the validator. You can actually run the code through the W3C validator. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the various sections of a web page, of an HTML 4.01 web page, and the basic required tags that you can use in any HTML page to make it work. Okay, so this is gives you an overview of what we're going to discuss. And in an HTML4 document, there are three main parts. They're whichever version of HTML you're using. There's a header section and a body section. So let's take a look at those. In the HTML version, you get this, it looks like a mess of code, a mess of text. But what this is actually doing, it's the first thing the web browser sees, and it's saying, hey, I am a 4.01, I'm an HTML document, and I'm version 4.01. So in order for your document to be valid as it runs through the validator, you have to declare which version of HTML is being used. And there's something called DTD, which you see that right before the word HTML, and that's called the Document Type Declaration. And there are actually three types that are available for HTML 4.01. There's strict, and that includes all elements that have not been deprecated. Transitional includes strict elements and deprecated elements, and frame sets includes transitional elements and frames. We recommend that you work with the strict DTD because it includes all elements that have not been deprecated. What do they mean by deprecated? As HTML has evolved, some of the tags that were used in HTML 1.0 are no longer valid in HTML 4.0, so they've been deprecated. They depreciate. They're no longer accepted as web standards. And so that's why we recommend that you use strict. So once you've declared the type of HTML for the document, then the remainder of the document is HTML tags. And you can use the standard document type declaration that we've used up top. You can just use that and copy and paste it into all new. It doesn't have to change. Okay, so the head element includes document information such as the title, keywords used for search engines, and other non-content document items. Think of the head section of an HTML page like what goes on inside your head, your thoughts. People can't see your thoughts, but you're thinking them, and they're important. The title element does not appear in the main section of the document, like in the actual body section of the web page, but it is very important because it's the text you actually see on the tab, like in Internet Explorer, or up top in the browser bar. The meta element is also found within the head tag, and metadata is information about data. You can use it to describe page descriptions, keywords, when it was last modified, and other important information, kind of like the thoughts in your head. This stuff will not show up on the web page for the user to see, but this is what search engines use to index their sites, one of the things they use. And you should place the meta tag within the head tag on an HTML document. And so this is just the head section of your HTML document. We talked about the head tag, and then we talked about the meta tag that is within the head tag. And then let's talk about the body section. The content of an HTML page is contained within the body element. What clothes you wear is what people see. So your thoughts are in the head section, that's the meta and the title tag, but then the actual content that folks see, that's contained within the body tag. And HTML elements controlled, back in the day, formerly, HTML elements controlled formatting and presentation. So it did everything. So it did the color of the text and the positioning of the text and also things such as table layout. Well, now we're going to get into this, but with the introduction and inclusion of cascading style sheets, which is known as CSS, HTML elements are now primarily used for the structure. So you're going to use your HTML tags to set up the structure of your document, and then your CSS is going to be used for formatting and presentation. And you can still practice HTML as a presentation controller, just make sure you declare your page as transitional and not strict. I added that comment because if you do want to try using some of the deprecated tags, which do work in several browsers, then just make sure you declare it as transitional and not strict. And then let's just take a look at the basic structures of a web page. We declared our document type, and then we go into the HTML tag, which lets the web browser know an HTML page is happening. We have the head tag, which includes our title tag. The meta tag is not required, but it is useful for search engines and it has other purposes. And then our body tag, that's where we'll put all of our other tags for showing content. So these are the basic tags you need to create an HTML page.